So I think Sadhguru is a piece of...
You ready for the video, man?
Yeah, man. Of
course. Let's get it.
Always.
Cool. Present practice. What is vibing? This is Vish and
this is Karthik.
And today I'm here with a Sadhguru skeptic who, honestly, before I even say much, introduce yourself. Let's start off with that, and we'll get into our backgrounds with Sadhguru and take it from there. So let's start with that, Karthik. What do you learn? How did you first come across? Actually, before that, introduce yourself.
My name is Karthik, and I'm a just graduated undergraduate, and I'll be heading to med school this fall. I am a very passionate neuroscientist, and I want to continue doing research in neuroscience.
There we go. And if y'all don't know me, this is Vish, and I do not have the neuroscientific background that he has, but I have been doing CS at the University of Texas. Welcome.
He has a spiritual background.
I do have a spiritual background, if you want to call it that, where I've been meditating for over 3 years now. I got initiated into Shambhavi Mahamudra by Sadhguru himself January 24th of 2021, and which is this year. And yeah, Karthik and I had a lot of cool discussions in the past, so this is the first time we're actually openly discussing these things with you all.
Definitely.
And that's kind of the brief background that I've had with Sadhguru. I've done inner engineering, I've done Isha Kriya for a while, got the family through Isha Kriya. And yeah, so before we even take it any further, I want to thank you for being here and briefly describe what I know about Karthik and his background with regards to Sadhguru, and then I want you to take it away from what you feel. So we've had discussions, you know, back and forth for a while, and Karthik is for sure a skeptic. I would like to give him the benefit of doubt in the sense that he has mentioned he has given Sadhguru a chance, and he has explored the path for a while, and he does have a more scientific basis of understanding for things. So from what I've seen, it seems like there is conflict of interest or conflicting views on certain topics, or even on just Sadhguru himself. Anyways, before I go into too much detail of what I think of what you know, please share what you know about this.
Sure. So I've actually done inner engineering myself.
Did you do the completion or just the online?
The online.
Okay.
So online, the 7 videos, the hour and a half each. I don't want to think anyone in a bad way or anything like that, but I didn't find much of a benefit or personal gain from it. I don't know if it was because of how I did it myself. Maybe I didn't do it to the fullest extent, but I did give it a good effort, but I didn't really find much of a benefit. So
okay, that's fair. So any other things you want to share about your background with Sadhguru? So have you seen videos? How did you first come across him?
Sure.
I'd love to hear that.
So I've seen Sadhguru on YouTube a lot, even before he got onto this. I've seen a lot of his videos, and some of them on topics that are very concerning to a lot of people. I think he, to be fair, I think most of the time he has answers that do not answer the specific question, in my opinion. And he generally goes on tangents that are basic knowledge, and he loves to riddle, which I laugh a lot of his jokes too, and they're funny, but sometimes I feel like it's more so condescending, and it makes him seem like he's a know-it-all or a god in some way, and that's something that bothered me, and that's also something that I think that he could take and improve a lot on, in terms of going into specifics instead of answering and actually answering the question instead of going on tangents, which I found that he did a lot. Okay. But again, like I said, Sadhguru, I mean, I'm not going to judge him completely off of, you know, a few videos that I've seen, because some videos I've definitely thought that he answers it very well, and he describes it very well, and he has a very intellectual conversation with the audience or whoever he's talking to, and I appreciate the good intention that he has, for sure.
There we go. Thank you so much, man, for sharing that. And again, I always love endorsing this idea of full transparency. Regardless of what your view is, I really value open discussion, and I'm not a fan of people that tend to suppress discussion, whatever view you have. So
100% agree. Yep.
I very much appreciate you bringing that to light. And it's okay to have differences. You know, having differences of opinion, differences of views, is what helps people grow. But suppressing discussion, that doesn't really help growth. Right?
Completely agree.
And you can call that cancel culture, you can call it whatever, but I just don't see that being as much of benefit for the growth
For everyone, right?
of everyone, right? I think discussion is very much valid, and Sadhguru himself actually talks about this back in the day. I mean, even in like the Indian culture, debates were a big thing back in the day. If anything, debates were so big and openly welcomed that there were even jokes that if God came down, people would debate God, right? Where in other cultures, it's not as prevalent, and you can't question God, and there's all these strict rules like that. So very much value that. But let's break this down. So you had mentioned engineering wasn't too much of a benefit for you, right? So coming from the experience that I've had, where I've done all the videos, and actually did get some help from Karthik himself, because I'd actually missed one of the videos, or long story short, I haven't really shared this with too many people, but he had an extra video which I hadn't seen, which I got to see from the thing. So shouts out to him. He's a very kind individual for letting me catch up on that video which I missed from that series. So shouts out to him for that.
Thank you.
But with that being said, I did actually get to see all 7 videos consecutively, right? Where I dedicated an hour and a half every single day in a quiet environment, and even took the next step, which is the completion program, which is getting initiated into Shambhavi Mahamudra, which is essentially the whole goal for that. As I've learned, the videos are really just to help you kind of create that environment in the mind at the intellectual level, to where you can receive the initiation. Jumping into initiation but having the intellectual, let's say, immaturity or lack of awareness, makes it harder to get initiated and get fully accepting to practicing the practice, which is Shambhavi. So that's kind of why he does it, from what I've learned.
Okay.
And that's the way I did it. So I'm curious, did you, when you're doing the 7 days or the 7 sessions, did you do it consecutively, or how did you do that?
Sure. So before that, actually, what is Shambhavi Mahamudra and what is initiation?
Absolutely, great question. So I want to share with you what I've learned from the experiences, and also openly address the idea that I myself do not know everything. And I want to preface this by just sharing whatever I know with this stuff and about this stuff with the limited amount of awareness that I have. I am not a yogi yet, as you've probably seen in the description down below. I'm an aspiring yogi. Yogi VISH is just the title. And so I have not attained enlightenment. And so I don't have that full awareness. So whatever I tell you is with the limited awareness that I have. With that being said, so Shambhavi Mahamudra, as I've learned from Sadhguru himself, it's a 10,000-year-old meditation process that gets passed on from guru to guru. And initiation itself, it's something that's really hard to describe. It's only something that can be experienced. You see, as we talk about many things, we talk mostly at the level of the mind, the mental communication. And so there are certain things and certain experiences which can't be really, at the end, described. I'll give you a quick example, and this might be an analogy which is maybe not as fitting, right? So, for instance, let's say the whole world was blind. Let's just say. Okay. But there was one person who had some defect who could happen to see. If that one person was able to see, and he tried explaining what he could see to every single person that was blind, he could only explain it through words, and that person can hear it. And they could take all the notes and all the research in however form they do it with the hearing, and learn about it, and they could write papers on this. But have they really experienced this beautiful background behind us? It's hard to explain, right? And maybe that person isn't of, because even, see, here's the thing with science, right? I very much respect science, and I value it. I mean, without science, we couldn't record this video. But science usually requires the repetitive, essentially replication of a study in order for it to be backed up, and in order for it to be a sustainable thing to be used, right? Is that a decent way of putting it? So it's an experiment that needs to be repeated, and you have to get the same result each and every time. That's right? And that's what makes science so reliable. But with this case, let's say that one person was able to really see, it's really hard to replicate that, because that one person is the only person on the planet seeing, right? So it's a very experiential thing. Similar analogy, I think this I learned from Eckhart Tolle, where, for instance, let's just say you've never tasted honey before. This is more practical. You've never tasted honey before, but you've read a whole thesis paper on it, you've read articles on honey, where it's from, the compounds, all those things, but you've never tasted it. You can do all that research you want, but does that really mean that you've experienced honey? So tasting is a different thing than writing and reading and so on, right? So with that being said, I know I'm kind of walking around your question,
No,
but I'm just making analogies
no,
to
good.
explain Shambhavi. And so it's harder to explain because it's only an experience
Right.
that can be experienced. But that's what initiation at the core is. It's where you essentially get invited, as I've learned from the program itself, and they do talk about not saying too many things out in the public because it can get distorted and passed along and just get diluted with what it's really saying. But it's imagined, I guess, like a seed being planted inside you by Sadhguru himself. And how that happens, why it happens, is it even possible? I'll just have to leave it open as an I don't know.
Yeah.
I just don't know. Does that hopefully make some sense and shed some clarity?
Definitely. Yep.
Okay. So hopefully that was answering
Yeah.
part of your question. Again, I know I didn't give you an exact answer,
Yeah.
but that's probably the best way to put it, right? With the experiential aspect. And that's where I view science. Here's the thing. There's three paths, as I've learned, at least from the limited experience I've had. There's science, there's religion, and there's spirituality. You see, science, as I've said before, I've covered it, is very reliable because of what I discussed, right? And I think it's very valuable and very needed. Religion, and this can be maybe a very oversimplification, so please don't mind me for you religious folks especially. I think there's some value for sure, and I think there was a time where religion was needed, but now maybe not so much. And if you practice religion, that's okay. I respect your right to practice what you want. But religion to me at the core is honestly a blind assumption about things you don't know. You hear things and then you blindly believe in it and accept it and agree with it without the proof, without the experience. Spirituality, and I'd love to hear your take on this in a second. Spirituality, what makes spirituality different than science and religion is that spirituality is a huge part of spirituality is seeking. So there's a difference between believing and seeking. Believing is blindly accepting and agreeing with something. Seeking is you accepting that you don't know and you're trying to figure out the truth.
Right.
And you don't just listen to the truth or hear to the truth, you experience the truth. Only then is it spirituality. So what makes it really distinct from science itself is that it really can be replicated because everyone's individual experience is so unique.
Right.
So that's what sets it apart from science.
Right.
Religion, what sets that apart is usually religion, and there could be some intersection between religion and spirituality as well as maybe even science and spirituality as well.
All intersect.
All three.
Yeah.
There's definitely certain areas. But the vast majority of religion is usually just reading some books, listening to some prayers, asking God for this, asking God for that. And that's it. There's not much of an experiential aspect to it. It's just you listening and agreeing to things which you don't know about. Spirituality, on the other hand, is all about experiencing things and accepting things you don't know. So that's kind of the general gist of things I have to share. I know I kind of went on a little tangent on answering your questions.
That
I'm
was
curious,
valuable.
what do you think with regards to what I shared from your scientific background or skeptical background?
Sure. It actually gave me a pretty good perspective that I've never actually came across. The experience perspective of honey and what was that? The blind and eyesight. That was definitely something that I found to be valuable. And I think people that haven't experienced something like spirituality, they don't know exactly what it's like until they've experienced it. So I'm curious. So an example of religion, you mentioned reading book and like reading a holy book or doing puja or rituals or going to churches or temples or synagogues or mosques. What's an example of spirituality that you went through and you find that that's where you saw truth? Yeah.
So where have I? So the question is, what is an example of a situation or time where I experienced a certain truth?
Right.
Okay.
Through spirituality.
Through spirituality.
Yeah.
Great question. So to keep it simple, I would have to say the meditation itself.
Okay.
Now this again is a little. All right, I'll get straight to the point without giving too much background or prefacing. So Shambhavi itself, and I want to make this clear. Actually, maybe it's Shambhavi, maybe it's not. The reason I'm saying that is because usually a huge part of this practice is to do it unconditionally, without expectations. Right. And the more you say certain things about how you've experienced this and experienced that, when someone is practicing and they hear those things, it creates a mental expectation, a mental attachment. And the whole part of spirituality is not to be attached to anything. Right. So it can take away from the practice itself. So I'm going to share something which is from a meditation I've done. It could be anything. I've done heartfulness, I've done Vish IG, I've done Shambhavi, just prefacing, it's not a specific one. So I want you all to experience whatever you want on your own.
I'm sorry, what's the second one? The Shukriya?
Isha Kriya.
Oh, Isha Kriya. I
Yeah.
thought you said Shukriya, as
No,
in
no, no.
thank you in Hindi.
Isha Kriya. But yeah, with that being said, right,
Yeah.
the first major, let's call it truth that I've experienced was thoughtlessness.
Okay.
So previous to these meditations, right, having thoughts, having uncontrollable thoughts, having thoughts that would, let's say, bother me, having thoughts just be there, or not even knowing I'm having thoughts, are really just examples of me being attached to these thoughts or identified with these thoughts, right? I would have these all the time. Post X meditations or meditations, for instance, there are many, many instances where I'm literally thoughtless, where I'm conscious, I'm able to observe and perceive what's happening around me without any mental chatter present in the mind. And I've truly experienced that. And you see a lot of the times, especially in this modern day culture, I think it's fine because, it takes evolutionary steps for people to get to certain areas. There was the whole relative, let's call it conservative time, where things like mental health were not really talked about and weren't believed in. Anything that wasn't proved, for instance, by science, even science at the time was actually very much viewed as a skeptical thing, right?
Right, of course.
But anyways, fast forward to now there's this whole idea of almost giving too much attention to certain topics and certain things. And so one of the new age topics that's arisen is this whole positive thinking, right? Be positive here, be positive there. Positive mantras, like write down affirmations, and maybe they're helpful, right? But I also feel like with positivity, it's a whole duality effect, right? Where anything you say positive usually gets just naturally balanced with negativity, right? So you can think all the positive you want, but usually from what I've heard, people that have, let's say, negative thinking or negative thoughts, they're told by a lot of people to use positive thinking, practice positive thinking, but they're just gonna go hand in hand. What if you could just have no thinking? And that's what I've experienced myself. I used to think, just being positive is a great thing, but that itself it's only the law of nature for it to be balanced. When you're neutral, having no thoughts, it's truly a blissful state to be in,
Right.
where you're just present. And the last thing I want to mention, and I'm talking a lot more, and this is
No, it's good.
a skeptic's view, and I'm talking more about
No,
this, but
that's okay,
I want to
it's
get your views on this. And it's really just the idea that it's never the situation that you're in. This is what I learned from Eckhart Tolle, spiritual teacher. And he's also read Power of Now and New Earth, right?
Okay.
You have, right?
Yeah, of course.
So, very beautiful spiritual teacher. It's never the actual situation that you're in that makes you upset. But it's your thoughts around the situation, how you perceive the situation, how you view the situation, how you take the situation. That is what makes you upset.
That's right.
It's not the situation itself.
That's right.
Now imagine you're having no thoughts. Now this doesn't mean that you can't think.
Right.
I can think if I want.
Yeah.
But as Sadhguru himself says, imagine you have this arm and it's just flapping around wildly and you have no control.
Yeah.
That's not conscious, is it?
I remember that. Yeah.
You know this one, right? But on the other hand, you keep your hand here and use it when you want, and then use it when you don't want.
Right.
But most of us, including me in the past, and even now, occasionally, your mind just wanders and it's uncontrollable. Hopefully that answers your question.
Well, yeah, I think definitely a few different perspectives that I got from this, but one part of it that I was a little unsure about because I've heard contradicting things about this. I know one of your videos, even Sadhguru's videos, you're mentioning removing negative thoughts and adding positive thoughts. I'm not sure.
Not exactly, yeah. So that's what he says, and what I've realized is thoughts. Again, this is all through his experience, for sure. And there's no scientific study to prove this.
Right.
And so it's really the idea that he says thoughts can never be subtracted or divided. They can only be added or multiplied. So he never says get rid of negative thinking.
Okay.
But what he says is, and he also doesn't say replace it with positive thinking either.
Right.
What he says, and I've practiced this too from the meditations, is to create distance from the thinking.
Okay. Interesting. Well, I thought I could have sworn he said remove negative and positive in one of the videos. Definitely.
I've seen, being an Isha practitioner myself,
Yeah.
I will say he has never said that.
Okay. Well, there you go. I don't know what to say.
That's okay. So
What else?
let's continue to. I know
What
I
else
talked
did
about-
you say? I forgot.
I was just talking about thoughtlessness. And then the situations and thoughts, all those things.
Thoughtlessness.
That was like the main experience. But I want to ask you questions now, because you asked me good questions. So
okay.
let me ask you questions. So, yeah, going back to, because you never answered the question, which was how you practice in engineering.
Right.
So I want to really quickly segue. So going back, I know I kind of shared a good amount of type of experiences from what you questioned, so I appreciate you for asking these great questions. But I'm curious, back to the engineering question. How did you practice that? How many days apart did you practice it? What was your environment like? We'd love to hear that.
Sure. So inner engineering, I've done it, it was seven videos, right? So I've done it consecutively, 7 days, the whole duration. So, and I found that, especially, like I've done it even without, he says don't do it on a full stomach, which is, I think it's good advice. And I've done it not on a full stomach, but I didn't really feel any positive benefit from it. So, not sure.
Okay.
So another thing is, what did you feel after that?
Absolutely. I love how he's asking me questions back, which is fine. I mean, I think this is an interactive discussion, which is totally okay. So, to be fully transparent, this is what he's talked about this in another video, right? Because people have also asked him in the past, and this is an interesting, I'd love to hear your perspective on this.
Okay.
So one guy had been practicing Shambhavi for a good amount of time. Right? And he asked Sadhguru, I've been practicing Shambhavi and nothing has happened to me.
Right.
His response was, that is the best thing. When nothing's happened to you, that means it's working. What do you think about that?
I don't know. That sounds like
it's okay.
I mean, it could be. Like I said, I have to stay open-minded. Yeah, everyone has to stay open, in my opinion. But I mean, what does that mean? Like, if nothing happens to you, how do you know if anything changed? Like, couldn't you do anything? Nothing happens to you, no matter what you do, and you can call it that it works? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah. So here's the way I look at that, and that's a valid concern. Mm-hmm. There's 3 ways of going about that.
Okay.
Either something quote unquote good happens to you.
Yeah.
Either something quote unquote bad happens to you.
Okay.
Or thirdly, nothing happens to you.
Yeah.
So if you look at it and break those down,
yeah.
If something bad were to happen to you,
okay,
and you do these practices, that's a problem. And I would agree. I would openly acknowledge it and call it out.
Right.
But up until this point, as long as you've been doing the practices right, there really hasn't been, and I could be wrong, so I'm gonna open this keep this open as a up in the air. There really hasn't been a time to where there's bad things that have happened from it. So let's rule that out.
Inner engineering?
Yes. At least from what I've heard.
But okay, so that's true. But how can you? There can't be anything bad that happens. There's no possibility of that because you're trying to get better in the first place.
So I think you're maybe answering your own question. So true.
No. There's no. There's nothing bad that can happen. What's gonna happen? You watch a video and you sit there.
Okay.
What's bad? What bad can happen?
I mean, if you watch a horror movie, there's plenty of things bad that can happen. Maybe you can't sleep that night.
That's true.
So,
but it's something that's supposed to be really positive, and nothing happens.
So here's the key.
Yeah.
Being positive isn't the point of it.
Okay.
This goes back actually into. Did you buy the Karma book at all?
Karma.
His new book.
No, I didn't, but I will. I'm looking to read it soon.
Sure. It's the whole idea. I'm not going to go too deep into it if you haven't read the book itself, and maybe you haven't
tell me.
Explore the concept of karma itself. But really, at the core, it comes down to the reason why nothing happening to you is one of the best things.
Right.
Is because if you were in pain, let's just say, and you were suffering, and then nothing happens to you,
right,
then yes, that is maybe not optimal. But let's
wait, what did you mean? I'm sorry?
You were suffering.
Okay, I'm suffering.
Let's just say you're suffering something.
Pain.
Right?
My hand hurts. Okay.
And nothing happens to you.
Nothing happens. As in?
Like, you do this practice and nothing happens, right?
Oh, I mean, why would you? Okay, this is an example.
Let's just say, Then, nothing happening would be not a great thing.
Okay.
Right? Because you want something to happen, meaning that pain to go away.
Okay.
But even then, actually, as I viewed that myself, the pain didn't get worse, did it? The pain stayed the same.
Right.
So this is maybe a topic which I'll keep it a bit more open-ended, because I know it can go back and forth, and it can really get a little complex. Yeah, but I see where you're coming from. I appreciate you sharing those concerns, and I myself have actually had those concerns. When doing certain meditations, I'm not going to say which ones. There were times where, like, is something happening? Is this really working? But it does go back to the unconditional practicing aspect, and that is why for certain things like Shambhavi Mahamudra, for instance, the way it works and the prescription, if you want to call it that, or like the instructions for it, is you doing the seven video series, but not stopping there. Doing the 7 videos, then getting initiated, which consists of doing, and this is for the online by the way, doing 2 pre-video classes, asana practice videos, and then the actual initiation day, and then doing Shambhavi Mahamudra for twice a day for 48 days, and then doing it once a day for 6 months.
Okay.
So until you've done those things, I feel like it's not fair for either you or even me or anyone else to say that doesn't work.
Okay.
Because it literally comes down to you, for instance, going to the first year of med school, let's just say, and this is maybe not the best example, but you go to 1 year of med school and it's a 4-year program,
right,
and you learn a certain amount of things, and let's say you haven't even gone into your neuro path, and you're like, oh, I haven't learned anything on neuroscience, this isn't for me, or I'm not going to learn anything here.
Right.
It's a little preemptive,
right,
potentially, and even for me, this applies to me too. When I was doing these practices, there'd be natural times where I was like, is this working?
Right.
But until you've done that, I don't know if it's fair to make the conclusion.
Right.
What do you think about that?
So that's great. It's a great example. The one thing I'd like to address is, when do you know it's working? When do you know it's working?
Okay, valid point. I would say, to keep it simple without saying too much prefacing for this one, until you've done that, which is the 6 months of constant Shambhavi practice and initiation, then you'll know.
What happens?
That there's many people who have experienced Shambhavi themselves, and I've actually talked to several people personally who have had chronic physical and mental ailments actually, and who were told by Western doctors that they have to take medication forever. Doing these programs, again, it's not an overnight transformation, it's not a magic pill.
Of course.
The way these Western medicines work.
Right.
They do these practices, and not just for 6 months, but they do it for a little more longer than that, and they just disappear.
Right.
So I can't give you a finite as in like, this is the exact amount of time, but to make it more specific for this question, I would say for Shambhavi, to know if it's working or not, it would come down to what I just told you. So essentially, this would require a process of 6 to 8 months. Would be the time. So until you've done that, I just feel like it's not fair, right, to make the assumption. And a quick point I want to make as well. Shambhavi Mahamudra, because you'd asked me what it was, right? So it is a 10,000-year-old process. Long story short, Adi Yogi, the first yogi on the planet, introduced it to the world. He was the one that actually brought yoga to the planet. Is what I've learned. Is it true or not? I don't know. It's what I've learned.
Right.
But what's interesting is that Shambhavi Mahamudra, the way it used to be taught, or initiated and practiced, it actually required 12 years, I forget the exact amount of years, but 12 to 14 years of you being a guru's disciple to make that work. Where you have to actually spend time with the guru, and if y'all have seen the Jackie Chan movie Karate Kid, have you seen the one with Jaden Smith?
Yeah, of course.
So if you notice, Jackie Chan will make you do some basic boring tasks, and that itself is a practice. The guru will make you do that as well for years and years till you get, in that state. The point is, real quickly, the point is, what Sadhguru has done is transform that 12 to 14 year process into a 6 to 8 month thing. Which is what makes him so quote unquote great, as they say. So long story short, that's what I have to say for that. What do you think?
I still not sure what you mean by it working. So what do people experience when it works? What do they experience? Because to say that something has cured your illness, you have to have a case-controlled study. That's what we do in science, right? You can say that something worked, but it could be from multiple sources of confounding variables. And it could even be just your mental state. Like we said before, your mental state can have curative properties. You can fix your mental state and still have a lot of your problems go away. For example, when I'm getting angry or upset, my stomach feels a little queasy and things like that. So even that, just there, in an acute situation, even it has an impact on your health. So why not even something as simple as being happier? Maybe that could have an impact on your health, and maybe that could be one of the variables that is being mistaken for
So valid concerns and valid points. There will be this link, which I'll comment down below in the description, where actually Harvard, I think Rutgers, and other well-known universities have actually researched Shambhavi Mahamudra itself. And they've actually found, now is this peer-reviewed and it's controlled and all those other things you mentioned? I don't know, but it has been verified by universities like Harvard, which I think is a relatively trusted, institution. They've actually found that anxiety levels has significantly gone down. There's an actual percentage, which you'll see down below.
Well, that's what I like to see.
Depression percentage-wise has gone down.
Okay.
They even go as far as talking about the menstrual cycle pain effects going down.
After 6 to 8 months of Shambhavi.
Something along those lines. Either it's completing the online or it's doing the 6 to 8 months. I'm not too sure on that. It'll be down below.
Yeah.
But there are actual scientific backings, again, at least proved by these university institutions, that talk about that. And there's even examples of talking about the percentage of participants who have reduced or even gotten rid of medication for mental illnesses. Okay,
that's another thing that I definitely think is a possibility, and I think a lot of people, especially in this country, have fallen victim to the pharma industry and the prescription overuse for conditions along, the whole spectrum, even obesity, diabetes, hypertension, hyperlipidemia, mental illnesses, all these things, they can be treated naturally. And I definitely think that prescriptions could be avoided in a lot of different situations like that.
There we go. Yeah. And this was honestly, I think, a good amount that we discussed today. We'll definitely make another part 2 for this coming soon. Before we conclude this, I would love to hear your views in terms of, just wrapping this up, would you say your views on Sadhguru has changed after this discussion? Views on spirituality, views on meditation, views on Shambhavi? Let's get a real quick kind of wrapping up summary by you, and we'll end it there.
Sure. So, Sadhguru in general, I think I definitely gained a little bit more perspective. I wouldn't transition from a bad to a good or anything like that. It happened in this interaction, but I definitely got more perspective on the evidence or the actual interaction that people have had with Shambhavi and inner engineering and these different resources that have helped these people. And even Vishrat, who has went through these experiences, and he claims firsthand that it has helped him, right?
Yes.
And I believe you were struggling with anxiety at one point?
Yeah, anxiety was something that was prevalent a couple of years ago. There were other meditations which helped reduce that, so this was, something that just maybe expedited that process.
Right. So the fact that his own anxiety has been a lot relieved with meditation as proof that it works. And I think meditation definitely works. I think definitely Shambhavi is definitely something I would consider, and I've definitely considered before this video and after this this interaction. But what else? Cut this part. But let me think.
This should be fun, man. Make a part 2.
Yeah, something else I forgot. One sec. So I think the institutions definitely doing the research on the impacts that Sadhguru and his programs and Isha and all these things definitely gives me belief that it actually works. I think that's something that would persuade me into doing these kind of programs. I would like to look further into them, see if they have done studies that have eliminated some of the variables that could contribute to bettering of these diseases or illnesses that people have. So looking into those, and I think personally, doing 6 to 8 months of something without knowing whether it works or not for sure is something that it strays a lot of people away from doing it. I think that could be something that if they work on, creating more evidence, tangible evidence that I can definitely know, okay, this has, with a p-value under 0.05, definitely has increased and helped a lot of people along the course of the programs that they do. If that can be done and that can be proven, I would definitely, have a definitely big shift in perspective in how I look at Sadhguru.
Yeah, beautiful, man. Thank you so much for sharing all those really valid points, as well as perspective. And Karthik does come from the more scientific lens as well as skeptical lens, which is perfectly okay. And I appreciate you for being here. And I appreciate you all for watching this discussion that we had. We will definitely be coming out with more videos soon about Skeptic versus Sadhguru and this new series. And with that, I want to appreciate you all again for being here. And if you have any questions or comments about what we've talked about, comment that down below. And I will plug Karthik stuff in also in the description down below, so check him out, his Instagram and so on. With that, make it a great day, take it joyfully, present practice, and stay conscious. Awesome job, man. Great discussion. Man.
Great discussion.
Good stuff, guys.
Until they reveal this evidence that we have this kind of, serious, significant impact, positive impact that these programs have on individuals, I will consider this as a pseudoscience.
Okay,
Yeah.
and that's fair.
And it's not to say that it's not true. I'm gonna stay open-minded, and it's nothing to devalue something that has not been disproved or proved yet. So I think that's a perspective that a lot of people should have in the modern day, because there's a lot of different information going around, misinformation, information that's not have been validated, or even things that people believe that don't aren't backed by evidence. People that don't believe something that actually could be true.
Yes.
So, and that could be a possibility here, and I'm not going to say that it's not. Yeah.
Definitely.